So this is the second month that we've had a Player of the Month program, and also chat if you feel free to jump in whenever I'm talking here. But this is the second month we've had a Player of the Month program, and a lot of like all the discussion in April was, is it Buxton? Is it Vlad? Is it Buxton? Is it Vlad? Everybody was like, I have no idea who we're gonna get for cards. And then they went and they did this. They gave us Ohtani, who people were curious if we get an Ohtani card. They gave us Turner, who I'm not a huge fan of Turner, but he's still better than a lot of cards that released this month with the May Player of the Month. They went and gave us a Vlad anyway, a Corbin Burnes that is still seen as one of the best starters in the game right now, and Byron Buxton, who
The center fielder. Buxton.
who, for all intents and purposes, I understand that the contact is not very high, the power is pretty good, the defense and speed are god tier. It's still one of the better outfielders in the game. And I think April's Player of the Month started off hot. People were like, wow. The whole point of what I'm saying with the April Player of the Month is that SDS took the players that had very, very good months. They not only did that, but they took players who we were all clamoring for. It was literally Pitchfork Nation. It was Buxton or it was Vlad. People are like, I want one of those two. We got both of them. And it was unbelievable. Now we go into May. So let me go back here really quick. In April, the cards that I think are still usable on your team right now, Nick Solak, Shohei Ohtani, Justin Turner, Vladimir Guerrero, Corbin Burnes, and Byron Buxton. And when I say usable, you might be like, why in the world am I using that Solak? I'm factoring in a lot of people. I'm factoring in like guys that are on All-Star, on Hall of Fame, on Legend, on people who are relatively new at the game. I would consider all those guys viable. The reason why I'm not saying Matt Barnes because he had 3 pitches and it's not very good. Knuckle, curve, splitter, fastball. Leave him alone. But going into May, I'm going to completely argue that I think there's 2 cards. The only 2 cards that I think are truly worth your time are this Ryan Tepera and this Marcus Semien. I think these are literally the only 2 cards you should be grinding for at all. So let me go into each card because it's super frustrating. Austin Meadows is nothing more than a bench bat. One of the trends of this Player of the Month program, for May specifically, is SDS felt like nuking one side of the plate into the sun for every single player except for Semien on here. And Austin Meadows falls into category number 1. 54 contact versus lefties. That's unusable. You can't use that. Even if you want to make him as a bench bat, there's still better bench bats than Austin Meadows with that 81 contact. I know the power is great. He's got a great swing too, but you're not going to be going after Austin Meadows at all.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
This Jesse Winker is significantly worse than the live series Jesse Winker is. Okay, so you have the picture in your mind right now. You're looking at it right here. 196 versus right, 91, 85 versus left, which is better than his live series. I get it. Like I completely understand that like the live series will not have these lefty stats, but it's worth it when I go into the actual card here. So Jesse, okay, well this is even more fun to play into my argument here. So this is 81 overall Jesse Winker playing up to an 86 overall today. And wouldn't you look at that, chat? Plus 15 live series update versus lefties. Now, not every day is going to be versus lefties. Usually these plus 15 stats are going in versus righties, but the speed, the defense, just like on his diamond that was just released, are not very good, so it doesn't really matter. The whole point is that you love Jesse Winker's swing, you love his power and his contact, and with the upgrade versus lefties today, I would much rather use this live series than the actual diamond, because you're only going to use him as a bench bat anyway. So why would I spend time grinding for that Jesse Winker when I already have a pretty good Jesse Winker in my inventory? So far SDS is 0 for 2, and now we get into even more of a brutal discussion. Buffalo with a follow. Welcome to Thuuuuney Bin. As we get further into this, SDS just loves to nuke guys one side of the plate. Now, Brandon Crawford does have gold defensive short. He does have a very good swing. He has over 90 power versus both sides, but It's just I don't understand the fascination with nuking guys versus one side of the plate. Brandon Crawford is a bench bat. I would use Brandon Crawford as a left-handed bench bat, and I would probably not do anything. I would definitely not do anything less with him. You have Ronnie Mauricio in the game. You have Fernando Tatis. You have SEMIEN, who you could play at short. You have so many other guys. Ernie Banks, Trevor Story. I could go on and on and on. You have so many other guys that you could put at short besides Brandon Crawford. He's nothing more than a bench bat, in my opinion. And already being 30 points into the program, to say that all of these bats are bench bats or not usable at all is off to a rough start. So now we get into one of the two cards that I would argue are viable for your lineup in Ryan Tepera here. He's got very good per nines, the standards reliever stamina that you'd expect here. If you look at the pitch break, he has 91 break on the cutter, which is not great. You would like that to be a little bit higher, but a primary cutter is always awesome. There's a little bit more break on that in the first place anyway. 2 fastballs, slider, and a changeup. I would think Tepera could be replacing, he might not replace Wade Davis, but he definitely could replace maybe your lowest right-handed reliever. Give him a shot, a game or two, but I'm not overly thrilled about Tepera, but he is the first usable card that I've talked about so far.
Look how they massacred my boy.
So we continue into the trend, right? The trend of this has been that SDS is nuking guys versus one side of the plate. We get into one of my favorite cards from MLB 20. I'll have on the screen right now, watching on TikTok and YouTube, I'll have the stats of Ramon Laureano from last season's monthly card. It was one of my favorite cards in the game, and look how they massacred my boy. I don't care about the contact versus lefties. I don't care about the power versus lefties. You could argue with the defense and the speed that Ramon Laureano's a bench option for you because he's a good bench outfielder and he's a bench lefty bat for sure. But to be this deep in the program and only have bench bats popping up, and here's the biggest reason why he's a bench bat. If you don't have a great team, 91 overall might break your starting lineup. That's the whole point of this. Is I'm trying to think of everyone. 49 contact is not for everyone. You're gonna maybe play a game or two, and you're gonna be you'll bat 1,000 versus lefties, and you'll have 1 hit versus righties. You'll be like, you know what, this Ramon Laureano's okay. The more you play with this card, the more you're gonna realize that contact is a very big issue, especially if you go up to Hall of Fame, and definitely if you play on Legend. It's super frustrating. They massacred my boy Ramon Laureano, and I'm very sad about it. So now we get into Corey Kluber. So last year, Corey Kluber, and if you follow Kevin on Twitter, Kevin was freaking out yesterday about another Corey Kluber. Everybody run away, hide in the corner, call your mom. Here come the bomb sirens. Everybody run away, right? This Corey Kluber is not that Corey Kluber from last year. This is a Corey Kluber with a good repertoire again. Visor and Petey with follows. Appreciate you guys. Thank you. Welcome to Thuuuuney Bin, by the way. He has a sinker, cutter, slurve, 4-seam, and a changeup. I get it. It's a good repertoire. The velo is not here at all. The pitch break is very good on the slurve, but I've never been a big fan of slurves in MLB The Show. I feel like slurves and sweeping curveballs are up there for 2 of the worst pitches in the game. Sweeping curves are definitely number 1. Sweeping curves are just big hooking home run balls waiting to happen. And the slurs, in my opinion, are the second worst pitch in the game. So I'm not a big fan of that, but he does have 81 velocity on it, so good discrepancy in velo there. 92 stamina is not good at all. If you get to obviously if you get to above 90 or so pitches, Kluber's going to be in the yellow. And as you know, if a guy's in the yellow, the PCI and the opponent gets a little bit bigger. So Kluber not going to be viable for very, very long. Also, the velo on this Kluber compared to last year's 99, nowhere near the same. I'm just not a big fan of this card this year. But, I mean, I could be proven wrong. But, again, I would not put Kluber in your rotation. I think that between TA2 and the cards you've already gotten so far, I think Kluber shouldn't be cracking a majority of people's starting rotations. So now we get into Jose Abreu, and we continue to get into this weird fascination that SDS has with splits. So Jose Abreu is, at least in this regard, Jose Abreu is very good because I love cards that are very good versus their same hand and a little bit worse versus the other hand. So what I mean by that is he has 116 contact versus righty. So if you're facing a righty, he's gonna have a bigger PCI. Facing a lefty, PCI is going to be a little bit smaller, which is not bad because you can see a left-handed release versus a right-handed bat a little bit easier. Power versus righties is lower. Power versus lefties is higher. It's an interesting card, but I go back into the same thing we've been talking about before. There's better cards than Jose Abreu that are in the game. Now, if you don't have collections done, I'm trying to think of everybody when I talk about this, right? If you don't have collections done, if you don't have TA2 stuff done, I think Abreu is still a pretty decent bat. I don't really know how I would platoon this card. You could platoon him with Big Papi, but the whole reason that you would do that is because you would want Papi versus a right-handed pitcher, and versus a righty, Abreu's got 116 contact. Pixelar with a follow. Welcome to Thuuuuney Bin. So, like, I think there's still better first baseman options. Abreu's swing is decent. It's definitely not one of the better swings in the game. Fielding doesn't matter at first base. Speed is not great. I mean, Vlad Jr. is still better in my opinion, though, if you did April monthly. So that's what I want to tie into that. D-Sim brings up a good point in the comments here. I think Vlad has a much better swing than Abreu does, and Vlad is over 100s versus right-handed bats, and then in the 80s versus lefties, which again is a little bit frustrating. But I think that one of the things we have to factor in more than anything is someone's swing, which is why I talked about Brandon Crawford a while ago. I think Brandon Crawford is one of the best swings in the game. This Jose Abreu, nowhere near as good of a swing as Vlad has. So I would say that Vlad is definitely above Abreu in that regard. And I would imagine the majority of people watching this video right now definitely have a first baseman better than Abreu. So I wouldn't warrant spending your time to get him either. So now we get into Zach Wheeler, which is a very intriguing starter. I will give you that. I am very curious to see how this Zach Wheeler is going to play. You see his per nines here. They're not very good at all. When you have a 94 overall card and per nines that are in the 80s there. So just to let everybody know, because I might have some people who might not know what I'm talking about here. So when you're playing online, the PCI that you see as your batter are affected by two things. They're affected by, well, three things. They're affected by, for your batter, your vision affects the outer PCI. So how far out the outer PCI goes is affected by vision. The contact affects how big your inner PCI is. So if you have, if we go to Ramon Laureano versus righties, that contact versus rights is going to be like this. Whereas Jose Abreu is going to be like this, right? So that's the first thing that affects your PCI. The other thing that affects your PCI is the per nine stats on hits per nine and Ks per nine. So the hit per nine and K per nine are not great on the Zach Wheeler. So your opponent's PCI will be like a standard level. And we're starting already. I mean, we're only in June here, but we're starting already to get to the point where per nines like this are really tough to compete with online, especially on Hall of Fame and on Legend as well. He has a very good fastball, and the sinker thankfully does not go at the same velo. I know it's been an issue for a long time, is that like the fastball and the sinker are the same speed, so it's easier to pick up on them. But the knock on the sinker is that he has 84 break on the sinker, so it's not really even going to move that much, which is not all that enticing at all. I keep going velo. There we go. Sliders interesting, but there's guys with better sliders than Zach Wheeler has. Standard curveball is okay. It's not one of the better pitches in the game, but what I'm saying with Wheeler is that he's a fringe top 5 guy, maybe. And I don't say top 5 in the game. I'm saying for a majority of people, he probably is cracking the bottom end of your rotation. But we talk about the April player of the month. Corbin Burnes is the top tier of your rotation. He's still thought of as one of the best starters in the game, even though some people are hitting him a little bit better now. Zach Wheeler is nowhere near the pedigree that Corbin Burnes has, and you just compare the months. April, Burnes, top of the rotation. Wheeler, bottom of your rotation, and it's a month later. So that's super frustrating. Now we get into the only... Oh, shoot, let me move me over here. Thank you guys for dealing with my rant, by the way. Now we get into the only other card that I would consider spending my time to acquire in this Player of the Month program for May, which is Marcus Semien. We've been asking for better second basemen throughout the game. As you know, Jackie Robinson costs a lot of stubs. He costs a little bit less because the 42 pack is a part of this path here. But this Marcus Semien, honestly, a very good card. You know, the gripes that I had earlier about Jose Abreu, about, well, not gripes, but you know how I talked earlier about how Jose Abreu has very good stats versus righties, less versus lefties, but that's okay because you're facing a lefty with a right-handed starter. What this Semien improves on with Jose Abreu is that Semien is entering a position where there's not a lot of very usable cards. So he's already going to be one of the best second basemen in the game. If you parallel to him, he has diamond defense at second. If you don't parallel him at all, he has gold defense at third and short. So that's another big W. He has low 70 speed. He's got a pretty decent swing. I'm really excited about Marcus Semien. I think the worst part about this program is that all of the other cards are just awful compared to the April Player of the Month. Like, April Player of the Month, when it first came out, and still looking back now, I think Solak can make someone's team, Ohtani can make someone's team, Turner can make someone's team, Vlad can make someone's team, Burns can make someone's team, and Buxton could, obviously. You go into May here, don't use bench bat, maybe use, don't use Semien. Like, the whole point of what I'm trying to say is that Semien is very good. I'm excited about Marcus Semien, excited to see what I can do with him, but the low tier and mid tier diamonds in the May Player of the Month program were a significant drop off compared to April, and compared to our enthusiasm early on with the program, I'm not as excited about this monthly program at all, and I hope that they pick up the ball in June. But I would like to hear your thoughts in the comments as well. Are you excited about some of these May Player of the Month cards? Do you think I'm wrong? I would love to hear that in the comment section. I'd love to have a little bit of a discussion there. But I appreciate you watching a little bit more of a rant video. I just wanted to get my piece across on the April versus May Player of the Month, and I will catch you in the next video.